Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Joachim Comic Center, and this is gonna be another top 10 list. Finally, we're doing this. As I'm recording this video, I recently watched the poll for the next top 10 list that you wanted me to film, and I've been waiting so long to actually share with you my top 10 DC Omnibus. As you maybe know, DC is my house of preference when it comes to the superhero teams and other diverse characters within it. But with having that said, believe me or not, this is not only gonna be Batman Omnibus. A fair warning though, after we're done making this top 10 list, I do not think that we'll ever have to do a top 10 Jeff Johns list. I should also say, before I'll start showing you the omnibus for this video, some of them I've only read once, so the stories are not exactly there, but I do know that I enjoyed them very much once I read them, but other ones I've read several times in other formats before it got the omnibus treatment. But hey, it's all the same. Now I'm gonna show you the first omnibus. So, the first DC Omnibus on my top 10 omnibus list is not a DC Omnibus. Stay with me. It's a Vertigo published book. And Vertigo, as you know, is the mature printing of the comic books from DC. So, the first one is Grant Morrison's Animal Man. Animal Man is one of the very first independent stories that I read. First reading it in trade paperback format, given to me by a friend. And once I started reading those trades, they were gone in like 3 days. It was the very first time that I really dug a hardcore comic book that wasn't just about superheroes. This was pretty meta. This was also one of the first exposures for Grant Morrison's other side of comic books, other than just writing about superheroes like the Justice League or Batman, even though his Batman is quite meta at sometimes. But Animal has stuck with me through a long time of the periods that I've read comic books, but I think I only reread it once or twice or so when it comes to it, so this does surely need to be reread whenever I get back to my DC Omnibus. For number 2 on the list, this is a actual DC print omnibus. Of course, Vertigo is also DC. Nonetheless, this is JSA, Volume 1, but I'm counting this for the whole series of JSA, of course. JSA, written by, of course, one of the greatest writers from DC, Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns is one of the greatest writers, of course, from DC, and I've loved everything that he has published so far. That is saying much about my taste in comics, but at least I enjoy what I'm reading. And when it comes to the JSA, JSA stands for the Justice Society of America, and they are not your Justice League. If Justice League is superheroes and protectors of the earth, this is more about family and legacy, I would say. In the JSA team you find the Golden Age Flash, the Golden Age Green Lantern, as well as new incarnations like Stargirl and Hourman and the Atom. So we have both characters that has legacy in them and other characters that has taken over legacies of earlier characters from the Golden Age. I'm gonna stop holding up those books because most of the DC Omnibus is like 1500 pages, so that, or maybe it's just me, but come on, I just want to talk about the book. And what I really love about JSA is the family aspect of it and the writing of Jeff Johns. He really had a lot of free space, it felt like, when it came to his writing, and the heroes and villains that he included were some heroes and villains that I've never heard of. But I still got so into it and learned about a lot of new characters in that way. Some of my favorite characters that came out of that book was Dr. Midnight and Hourman, which I've never heard of. And Hourman in particular had a super amazing story arc, I thought, within Volume 2 of JSA, and that is why that is my specific favorite volume. But of course, I love the whole series right on through. The next omnibus on the list is, yes, yet another Jeff Johns, but here it is. His magnum opus, Green Lantern. Jeff Johns' Green Lantern is truly an epic story, and I see it like this movie trilogy on each and every of these omnibus, because each omnibus contains its own big bang event, basically. So when it comes to the actual events that's in Green Lantern, it is of course the Sinestro Corps War, the Blackest Knight event, and the rise of the Alpha Lantern, and the wrath of the First Lantern. Jeff Johns' Green Lantern series is actually one of the few series that survived the soft or hard DC reboot when it revamped into New 52 after Flashpoint. And I believe that is partially because of Jeff Johns and partially because his stories were so great, and the Green Lantern wasn't the problem when it came for the decision for DC to reboot the universe. It was Superman. But I'm glad that Jeff Johns got to ride it all through until the end, as he felt that he was done with the character. And I have tried to read other Green Lantern material that takes on after Jeff Johns' run, but in my mind, I don't really need any more Green Lantern. His Green Lantern is perfect, and that is all I need for my collection right now. Next up, and no, I am not gonna stop. This is yet another book written by Jeff Johns. The next book I'm gonna show you is my most favorite event out there. Maybe a top 10 event list could be something. Comment down below. But this is Infinite Crisis. And I showed you this book in my top 10 graphic novels, and that was not without cause. Infinite Crisis stands as a sequel event to the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, but at the same time it stands so well on its own two legs, partially because it has the countdown issues up to the actual event. Pretty much half of the omnibus is a countdown into the Infinite Crisis event, which is only a 7 to 8 issue event series, I would say. But unlike other tie-in issues, these ones actually matter. And that is why I love that omnibus so much. Not to speak about the characters that are involved: the Golden Age Superman, Golden Age Lois, Earth-free Alexander Luthor, and Superboy Prime. What they do to that character in this omnibus. Oh. So yeah, it is one of my top favorite events and top 10 DC books. The next book is, yes, also written by Jeff Johns. Don't leave. It is also written by Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, and Greg Rucka. And if you don't know which book I'm talking about, it's 52. 52 was a weekly published series that started off right after the event of Infinite Crisis. Infinite Crisis is an event that I have reread at least 5 times. This I've only read once. But still, I'm holding it here in my top 10 DC Omnibus video, and that is just simply because this packs a lot of shit. You would think that 5 writers within a writing team would jumble up stuff a bit when it comes to a single comic book that is weekly published, but it actually makes it work. So the premise for this book in particular is that now Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman is gone for a whole year. So other characters needs to step forward in order to take the places of the Trinity. Temporarily, of course. The 2 characters that stands out the most in the series is Booster Gold and The Question, and also Renee Montoya. Most of you maybe remember Renee Montoya from the Batman the Animated Series. So 52 is one of the very first DC Weekly series, and I would say still till this day one of the most successful ones. DC has published other weekly series like the Batman Eternal series, The Future's End, Earth 2 World's End, and something else. But 52 is absolutely one of the stronger stories, and that is why it's on my top 10. And if you haven't noticed, I'm trying to show the books a bit in chronological order. Not that that is what you're gonna take out of this video, but I try still. So after 52, there are some other stuff that happens. Grant Morrison steps into the ring again, and the next book I'm going to show you is the Final Crisis Omnibus. This book is a bit controversial, not only because of its huge 1500 page size, but also because of the main event itself. There are so many times that I hear people complain about how Grant Morrison is thinking and how he is out of his mind when it comes to the Final Crisis event. I hear how people need to reread from the beginning each and every time, and each and every time they do that, they understand even less. It feels wrong to say that I feel sorry for them, but it's only because I want them to enjoy the story just as much as I do each and every time that I read it. I'm not gonna try to explain what happens in the actual event. It is another crisis event, so shit is happening with the DC universe itself. But I do feel sorry that there are people who think that this is not a good read at all. Because it's one of my favorite events when it comes to DC. And I think it's one of Grant Morrison's finer moments. He brings so much back to the table and takes out some big guns. Literally. But the important part is that I enjoy it, and that is why it's on my top 10 list. And since I just showed you a Grant Morrison book, let me continue with this. Batman by Grant Morrison. And the reason why I pick up volume 2, of course I love the whole run of Grant Morrison's Batman. It is one of my top favorites. Volume 2 contains the Batman and Robin series. And the Batman and Robin in Grant Morrison's run is not Dick and Bruce. It is Dick and Damian. And that Batman duo is my favorite. Not only is it a big contrast that we now have a Batman that is smiling, we have a Robin that is kicking more than Batman has ever had. Sometimes a bit too far, but still. The Batman by Grant Morrison is one of my favorite because I've gotten the most exposure to his material when it comes to the very first paperback that I picked up, that was Batman and Son, and then later on reading his Batman and Robin run in the paperback format, going up to the Absolute. And here we have it once again in the omnibus format. And so I have reread and reread his Batman run over and over again. Each and every time I got a little more material added to it and get a bigger, greater scope of the whole story. So of course I cannot wait to get into a pure Batman readathon and get through his whole Batman era. And that is why this book is in my top 10 DC Omnibus. Next up is another big event. This one takes place after Final Crisis, and it is Blackest Knight. And of course, this is also written by Jeff Johns, as this takes place within the Green Lantern series. The Blackest Knight is of course the foretold darkest day for the Green Lanterns, as it calls upon the final core, which is the Black Lanterns. I would like to think that Blackest Knight is DC's very first zombified series, and of course now we have Deceased, but I do still think that Blackest Knight hits harder as it is in actual continuity. Blackest Knight is also the very top event when it comes to the Green Lantern Omnibus Volume 2, and with the Blackest Knight Omnibus you do not only get the Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps issues, you also get all of the other tie-ins, almost, from the entire DC line. And as I am a very vivid reader of the DC universe and picked up most of the titles that are involved within the series, I feel that I get so much out of all the tie-ins that is in that event. So unlike the Green Lantern Omnibus Volume 2, where the event also takes place, in here you get to follow the Teen Titans, the Justice League, Batman and Robin, Wonder Woman and the Flash, and so many other characters in their perspective of the Blackest Knight. Then the artwork by Ivan Reyes, I think, is the very peak in this omnibus as well. It is all-out action from beginning to end, as some revelations also happen within the omnibus, and that is why it is on my top 10. Second to last book, I'm not gonna say the writer, I'm just gonna show you this. Aquaman. And so forth. No, but seriously, this Aquaman Omnibus is one of the greatest things that I've read. If you ever were a person that thought a funny thought about Aquaman, you will immediately stop once you pick up this book. Aquaman is a truly badass within this book, and also, to be fair, I actually watched the movie with Jason Momoa way before having read this book, but I don't care. I love both iterations of it. And the Ivan Reis artwork within this one is so good. Ivan Reis is like a modern Neil Adams when it comes to how he draws faces and models the characters overall. It is epic panel after epic panel, both when it comes to the events of the Throne of Atlantis and when we go into the deep dark of the trench. And we also get some stunning revelations within this one on the legacy of Arthur Curry and his kingdom. So yeah, when I finished reading this, I wanted more, but then I found out that he hasn't written more. But of course there are other writers that has taken up the trident after Jeff Johns left the title, but sadly they have not been given a omnibus treatment as of yet. If it's something that the Aquaman Omnibus by Jeff Johns has proven, is that Jeff Johns can make me like any character. And then, last but not least, the 10th book is gonna be Justice League Darkseid War Saga. And Justice League by Jeff Johns, when it comes to the New 52 era, it's almost perfect the whole way through. If the New 52 Justice League Volume 1 would have been released today, I probably would have held that book up today. But so far, it has not been released. So, this is what I'm going to show you. This is what it all builds up to within the New 52 run. It is Darkseid versus the Anti-Monitor, and it is truly one of the biggest clashes within the DC universe. I truly hope for them to actually release the Volume 2 containing both the Forever Evil and the Darkseid War Saga, because then that would be probably his greatest work ever contained in one book, but one can only hope. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 DC Omnibus. I hope you liked this one. I was really enjoying showing you my top DC books, as it is my house, as I've said. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe, and of course hit the bell so you won't miss out on the next video. Maybe it's a top 10 video, maybe it's a whole video, I don't know yet. But whatever you do, I thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.